A mother screamed after losing her daughter, and something unexplainable changed everything. The sun was dipping low behind the hills of Pine Hollow, Alabama, casting a long golden light over the fields and porches of the small town. It was the kind of evening when the air feels thick and still, and time seems to slow down. Children's voices echoed in the distance, screen doors slammed shut, and the smell of frying catfish floated from kitchens. It was the kind of ordinary Friday that no one would ever expect to turn into a nightmare. Lori Ann Baker was standing outside her trailer, arms crossed, talking to her neighbor Darlene about the power bill that was 3 days past due. She was tired, not just the kind of tired that comes from working a long shift at the grocery store, but the deeper, quieter exhaustion that sinks into your bones when you've been holding everything together for too long. At 34, Lori had lived most of her adult life in survival mode. Her days started before sunrise, packing lunches and rushing Emily off to school before clocking in at the Piggly Wiggly. Her nights ended with microwave dinners and unopened mail stacked on the counter. She had no partner, no savings, and no time to dream. Since the day Emily's father walked out, no note, no goodbye, Lori had taken care of everything alone. Somewhere along the way, she'd stopped expecting life to give her anything good. Her faith, once tender and alive, had hardened into silence. She didn't pray anymore. She didn't expect God to show up. If he was real, she figured, he had better things to do than worry about a woman living in a rusted trailer with a broken air conditioner and a daughter who sometimes asked too many questions about why her daddy never came back. Emily, though, was light. A quiet, sweet, curious 7-year-old who talked to butterflies and collected rocks like they were treasures. She had a habit of closing her eyes before bedtime and whispering, "Thank you, Jesus," even when dinner was just peanut butter toast. Lori never understood where that came from. She certainly didn't teach it to her. That afternoon, while Lori and Darlene stood talking by the porch steps, Emily had wandered off to play. Lori had seen her just minutes before, skipping in the patch of weeds behind the trailer, twirling with a plastic ribbon tied around her wrist. She'd been wearing her favorite yellow shirt, the one with sunflowers, and her hair was still damp from her bath. But when Lori turned back toward the yard, Emily was gone. At first, she thought nothing of it. Maybe she'd gone inside for juice. Maybe she was hiding, being silly. But as the seconds stretched and the silence grew, something icy gripped her chest. She called her name. Once, then again, louder. No answer. She ran through the trailer. Empty. She checked the neighbor's yard. Nothing. By the third minute, panic was taking over. Lori's voice cracked from shouting. Darlene was calling neighbors. People came out of their homes. Cars stopped in the street. Flashlights appeared. Someone mentioned the woods. Someone else mentioned the creek. Then a small boy from down the street, 10 years old, barefoot and holding a slingshot, pointed toward an old vacant lot 2 blocks away. "There's a hole over there," he said, eyes wide. "A big one." Lori ran, barefoot, heart pounding in her throat. The lot had once held an old farmhouse, long since torn down. Now it was just tall grass, garbage, and broken bricks. And in the center of it, beneath dead leaves and a rotting board pushed aside, was a wide black circle in the earth. An old well, no warning sign, no cover, just open darkness. By the time firefighters arrived, Lori was on her knees, screaming her daughter's name into that hole. They pulled her back gently, but she didn't want to move. She kept repeating one word: "Please, please." Sergeant Carter, a local man with 20 years on the force, secured a harness and went down himself. It took minutes that felt like hours. When he came back up, his hands were trembling. "She's down there," he said. "She's not moving. It's a miracle if she's still breathing." They worked quickly, lowering a stretcher and pulling Emily's body out of the dark. 30 feet. No ropes, no ladders, no way for a child to climb or stop herself. Lori saw her daughter's face, pale, lifeless, with a trickle of blood at the corner of her mouth, and nearly collapsed. A paramedic laid Emily flat on the ground and began CPR immediately. Another knelt beside Lori, gently taking her hand. "Ma'am," he said quietly, "if you believe in God, now's the time to pray. It'll take a miracle." Sirens wailed as they rushed to Pine Hollow General, the nearest hospital. Laurie rode in the front, silent, holding her breath. The EMT in the back kept working, barking numbers and calling for more oxygen. Emily's pulse was weak, then gone, then weak again. She flatlined twice before they reached the ER. Inside, doctors did all they could. Electrodes, shots, compressors. For nearly 45 minutes they fought. Then the flat tone on the monitor held steady and silent. The lead doctor, Elizabeth Rowan, stepped into the hallway. Her voice was low. "I'm so sorry. We did everything we could." Laurie felt her knees give out. They let her into the room, now quiet. Emily lay beneath a white sheet, tucked up to her chest. Her small hand rested on the edge of the bed. Her favorite yellow shirt had been cut open. There were bruises on her arms, dirt in her hair, but her face still looked like Emily, still soft, still hers. Laurie didn't scream. She didn't run. She walked to the side of the bed and looked at her little girl. And then, in the stillness, she fell to the floor, not from despair, but from surrender. Her voice cracked as she began to whisper, "God, please, just breathe into her again. I don't need anything else. I swear I'll never doubt you again. I've been so bitter. I've blamed you. I've complained every single day. And I never once said thank you, not for her, not for my life, not for waking up. Please forgive me. Let me be her mother just one more day. I'll be different. I'll be grateful. Just give her back to me." She wept from a place deeper than sorrow. Her body shook. Her tears soaked the floor. And then she stood. She walked over, kissed her daughter's forehead, and left the room in silence. She didn't know what would come next. She just knew something had shifted. Dr. Elizabeth Rowan walked slowly toward room 208 of Pine Hollow General Hospital with a clipboard in her hand and a weight on her chest. The monitors had been turned off. The nurses had stepped away. The room was silent now. Not the sterile silence of hospital routines, but the heavy, reverent silence that settles when life has slipped quietly out of the body. Emily Grace Baker, age 7, had been pronounced dead. The cause, cardiac arrest following a traumatic fall into an abandoned well, 30 feet straight down. No one was expected to survive that. And for a while, she hadn't. Dr. Rowan had done all she could. She was a woman of science, but even she had whispered a prayer when she looked into the eyes of the girl's mother. Something about the way that woman had fallen to her knees, not out of superstition, but raw, soul-deep surrender, had left her unsettled. She stepped into the dimly lit room. The little girl was still there, lying peacefully beneath a white sheet. Her skin was pale, her small body quiet, untouched now by time or noise or struggle. The only sound in the room was the faint ticking of the wall clock. Dr. Rowan reached for the toe tag to double-check the time, and that's when it happened. The child breathed, just one breath, shallow and slow, like someone waking from a long dream. Then another. Her chest began to rise and fall. Her lips moved slightly, her fingers twitched. The doctor froze, then shouted down the hall with a voice she hadn't used since residency. "She's alive! We've got a pulse in 208. Code blue reversal." In less than a minute, the room erupted. Nurses flooded in. The monitors came back to life. The heart rate blinked on the screen, 52 BPM and climbing. Oxygen was administered, but Emily was already breathing on her own. As the chaos settled and her vitals stabilized, Emily opened her eyes. Softly, calmly, she looked around the room. Then, barely above a whisper, she asked, "Where's my mommy?" They called Laurie back immediately. She had only just made it down the hall before a nurse found her. The mother who had walked away moments earlier, crushed and empty, now ran toward the room with her heart in her throat. When she stepped through the door and saw her daughter sitting up, eyes open, breathing, she didn't scream. She didn't ask how. She dropped to the floor. Not from grief this time, but from wonder, from holy shock. Emily looked at her mother, as if she'd just seen her seconds ago. "Mommy, I saw angels." Laurie trembled. "What did you say?" "They were around me. They were full of light. One of them held my hand." The room went still. Emily kept talking, slowly, calmly, like someone remembering something more real than a dream. He showed me the sky. It wasn't like ours. It felt warm and bright, but quiet, like love. And then I saw you. You were on the floor crying. You were saying sorry. You were asking God to bring me back. Laurie gasped. Her hands flew to her mouth. The memory of her prayer, the exact words, the exact moment, flooded back. Emily smiled softly. The angel said, "It's not time yet. Go back to your mommy. And don't forget, there is a God who watches over you, and her too. Even when she's bitter, even when life is hard, he never stopped caring." No one in the room said a word. Not the nurse holding a clipboard, not the doctor standing near the door. Everyone just stood there, suspended between heaven and earth, between what they thought they knew and what they had just seen. Emily's vitals normalized within the hour. Scans were ordered. Tests were run. No internal bleeding, no fractures, no neurological damage, only a mild concussion and a few light bruises on her arms and back. The kind a child might get from falling off a bike, not plummeting 30 feet into a concrete shaft. There was no medical explanation, but Laurie didn't ask for one. She had already received the only answer she needed. In the days and weeks that followed, life did not become perfect. The trailer still leaked when it rained. The fridge still rattled at night. The bills still came. But Laurie was different. She no longer woke up angry. She didn't speak curses over her life before her feet hit the floor. She stopped asking, "Why me?" and started whispering, "Thank you," over the dishes, over the laundry, over the small, quiet breath of her daughter sleeping beside her. She spoke differently, walked differently, even smiled like someone who had been carried out of the dark. People noticed. And when they asked, she didn't give them a sermon. She gave them a story. "I used to complain about everything," she said. "Then I almost lost the only thing that mattered, and that day I learned gratitude changes everything." With help from a neighbor and a small loan, Laurie bought a used coffee trailer parked on the edge of town. It was dented, rusted, and covered in peeling paint, but she saw more than an old food stand. She saw a second chance. She painted it white, clean, simple. And on the side, in bold black letters, she wrote, "Gratitude, thank more, complain less." She parked it near the elementary school. Her first customers were teachers, janitors, crossing guards. Then came nurses, bus drivers, pastors, truckers, single moms. The smell of fresh coffee and cinnamon filled the air every morning, and something else filled that corner too: peace. Eventually, Laurie opened a small café downtown. She kept the name, Gratitude. The tables were simple, the decor humble, but every person who walked through those doors left lighter than they came in. Emily grew stronger, joyful. She didn't talk much about the angels after that, but sometimes, when she sat near the window watching the sunlight pour through the glass, she would close her eyes and whisper, "Thank you, Jesus," the same way she did when she was little. And when people asked Laurie, "How did you do it? How did your life change?" she just smiled, looked up and said, "I asked God for one more breath, and he gave me a brand new life." Because sometimes God lets us fall, not to hurt us, but to catch us, to wake us, to show us that he never left. Maybe you're like Laurie was, tired, bitter, holding on by a thread. Maybe you've stopped praying. Maybe all you do is complain. Maybe you've forgotten how to say thank you because you haven't seen anything to be thankful for in a long time. Then hear this: it's not too late. If you're still breathing, there's still hope. Start with gratitude. Thank him before the answer. Trust before the miracle. Fall to your knees before the blessing comes. And when you do fall, and we all will, know this: there is a God who still catches. And if he used a little girl, a broken mother, a forgotten well, and a rusty coffee trailer to show a whole town that he still works, then yes, if God once used a donkey, he can use this story too. So don't keep it to yourself. Share this story. Leave a comment. Subscribe for more. Because sometimes a single story is all it takes to bring someone back to hope, to remind them that God still speaks, still sees, still loves, even through a fall. even through the silence, even now,